Welcome to Meeple Podcast, Season 4.
A year and a half after his first interview on this channel, we are pleased to have in our program Alexey Pegushev, the current runner-up from the Carcassonne World Championship in Herne 2023. Streamer, YouTuber, BGA master, great and very interesting man in the international Carcassonne community. Alexey, welcome one more time to Meeple Podcast.
Great to talk to you again, Joaquin. Gracias por invitarme.
I have a lot of questions for Alexey. Are you ready?
Let's go.
The first question. Matt Tucker. He beat you in the last MCO, in the last UK Championship and finally in the recent World Cup in Germany. Maybe you are stronger than him, but all of us find another player whom is possible to knock out. The same feeling I have when I meet someone you know on arena competition, you have when you play against Matt Tucker in person?
Oof, you're going straight for the jugular, Joaquin. Well, I'll tell you more. It's not just Matt, but the entire British team. In in-person Carcassonne tournament, I have a negative record against Matt Tucker, Nick Basti, Chris Wallace, Dan Chard, and Van Gielem. I clearly moved to the wrong country for playing Carcassonne. Of course, the sample size in most of these cases is just one game, and there are exceptions to this, but my British curse is a curiosity I like to laugh at sometimes. In all seriousness, I've played and lost so many games online that things like this don't really change the way I play. What happened in the previous game should not have an effect on what will happen in another game. When I find out I'm paired up with somebody against whom I have a negative record, the sinking feeling of, oh no, I'm going to lose again, the kind of feeling that you're describing just does not occur to me. I sometimes get the opposite intrusive thought of, okay, now it's revenge time. But this is also not a good mindset since any premature thought about the outcome of the game can be a distraction. So I consciously worked as part of my preparation to make sure nothing like that occurs at the 2023 World Championship. Also, there was no real reason to have negative thoughts before my games with Matt at the World Championship. When we met in round 5 of the preliminary stage, we were both in good spirits as we had just secured a spot in the playoffs, so there was no pressure on either of us. The stakes of that round 5 game were not that high. And when we met in the final game, from my perspective, because of our round 5 game earlier that day, Matt was no longer this undefeated opponent. So technically, I was the side with the momentum, and the ball was in Matt's court to try and get even for the day. I'm not sure how it affected Matt's thinking, if at all, but to me, the events of the final game did not feel predicated on our previous tournament history.
Last year, April 2022, I asked you the following question. In your first interview on Meeple Podcast, someone is going to play a face-to-face final. What advice would you give to him? That was the question. But that Saturday, 7th October of 2023, you were the one in that situation. You answered me last year that it's an important thing to study the opponent and go for positions he doesn't like, but in the final with Matt, it seemed the opposite. Tucker had studied you, because he said in the interview as world champion that you asked him to meet for playing before the World Cup, and it was at the end in Watford. You both played 3 games, but you both know each other quite well. You have played twice in the last 2 MCO events. Last UK Championship, those 3 matches in Watford, and twice in this World Cup, a part of the games you have played on BGA. You first won the previous game in the Swiss system stage, but the grand final was different. Explain to the listeners how it was for you. What's your opinion about that match, please?
It wouldn't be accurate to say that Matt had somehow studied me. It makes it sound almost malicious. He has watched and commented on my YouTube videos, of course, and even made an appearance on my channel once when we were co-commentating a World Team Carcassonne Online Championship match. But other than that, it's not like he was particularly preoccupied with gathering anti-Alexey intel or anything. After all, we were not exactly planning to play each other in the finals in the first place. When we had our practice session in Watford, we knew that playing each other at the World Championship was a theoretical possibility, although again, neither of us thought it would occur twice, nor that it would be at such a late tournament stage. But this wasn't the purpose of our meeting. We just got together to talk all things Carcassonne and get in shape for the championship. And given the overall championship results, it is fair to conclude that we both benefited from that practice session. At least I can say this for myself. But going back to the core of your question, which is, what was it like to play in the final against somebody with whom you have a long history? I followed what I said in our previous interview. I knew just as much about Matt's style of play as he knew about mine. So for example, Matt seems to thrive in closed positions with a larger number of small features rather than open positions with one big decisive feature. You know, his type of game is a game where both sides have 6 peoples blocked, both sides are starving for points, one side is maybe trying to stick on a shield onto their ruin to get extra 2 points, and the other side maybe has a tiny 6-point field with just one extra square to drop a city cap, and then that side desperately tries to fill that gap with a city cap so that that 9-point field, so that 6-point field turns into a 9-point field, and then one of the sides wins by like 3 points. You know, that kind of game. So I figured that if the tiles allow, I would play an open position. You know, one where both sides get to place 20 meeples per game, score 100 plus points, and the victor is determined foremost by efficient tile use. This is where the game was initially headed, and to my surprise, Matt kinda cooperated in that regard. On move 2, he drew a double city cap tile and had a choice of several places where to start a new city, and this choice would have a lot of influence on the future board texture. And he quite quickly chose a placement that opened up the board early on, creating a lucrative monastery spot, a 6-point field with a lot of growth potential, and a shared completable medium-sized city for both sides to fight for. A couple of moves later, Matt claimed the monastery spot, and I claimed the field, opening the board even further up in the process. Towards the middle of the game, in an unlikely sequence of events, the position started closing up for a variety of reasons. I was without a meeple in hand for 10 moves, then Matt was without a meeple in hand for 10 moves, and the position that started out as a point-scoring shootout turned into a tight defensive squeeze. When it comes to creating positions your opponent doesn't like, you only have so much control. The priority still remains to play the objectively strongest move if you can find it. If you have a city cap in hand, well, you are going to make the same 4-point city, whether it is against someone you know or a complete beginner. As we were approaching the end of the final game, I had started mounting a comeback from Matt's initial lead on the scoreboard, but as we were running out of tiles, I had less and less time to compensate the point gap, and my win percentage was on the verge of falling to the single digit. There was a moment with 8 tiles remaining when maybe, instead of trying to find the best move objectively, I could have utilized the fact that Matt was getting low on time and played a different move that gives Matt more options, simply trying to provoke him into making a mistake. However, I did not pull the trigger on this idea. Going with a more standard approach did not cost me the game, but with the given tile run out, I would have lost with 1 point instead of 2 points. I guess this would have been slightly more entertaining for the spectators. And in hindsight, trying an anti-human or anti-opponent rather than objective approach to the pre-endgame in that situation would have probably been my best practical chance, given the difficulty of my position. If any of your listeners are wondering which move exactly I'm referring to, just wait until December when my full World Championship recap video series comes out.
One more difficult question. Are you a master on BGA and only an expert player in person?
I don't particularly enjoy referring to myself as a master in the first place. Even though it is an actual title, which I have, the sound of it has a conceited flavor to it. Of course, I do use the word master all the time for the sake of YouTube content. I put the word master in YouTube video titles and descriptions to communicate to new viewers that, hey, it's not just some rando talking, the advice they're gonna get has some actual credibility. But other than that, I don't use the word master that much, even for online Carcassonne. So labels aside, the way I understand your question would be, do I play worse in person than online? To that I say that everybody plays worse in person than online. Every now and then, I find myself in an online game in which my opponent just makes 0 mistakes. Never had that happen in person, not even once, in many years of playing Carcassonne. And it makes sense when you think about it. Online, we get to practice thousands of games, and in person, at best, it's hundreds of games. You get better at the thing you practice more. And these numbers are true for pretty much all World Championship contenders if you look at their online game history. Let's take recent World Champions. Maciej Polak, 1,500 online games at least. Arpad Gere, 6,000 online games. Matt Tucker would be the exception with only 1,000 games on Board Game Arena, but he has vast experience in other online mind sports to complement that. I've heard of some players who have a reputation for being not so strong online but very strong in person. However, I don't think they are an exception. It seems to me that they are just better at transferring their online experience to in-person situations than their competitors are. If we were to objectively analyze the quality of their games in terms of simply the number of mistakes, I'm quite sure their online games would still do better than their in-person games. All that said, I spent some time in August and September specifically preparing for the in-person aspect of the World Carcassonne Championship. I worked on board vision, tile counting, points counting, time management, and interpersonal interactions. I did not set myself goals for the championship in terms of results, but I did set goals in terms of performance. The main goal I had was to play at a level as close as possible to the level of my online game. And I think I was able to accomplish that goal. I had a good tournament overall, managing to win 7 games in a row, most importantly 7 very different types of games. Meeple majority, meeple minority, Brazilian style field fights, Japanese style imbalance, it all happens at various stages of the tournament for me. I managed to solve some endgames and try out a wide range of strategies, adjusting to the unique properties of each position on the fly. For some of these wins, I got help from the tile stack, and in some of them I had to climb out of an objectively losing tile runout. Of course, I made mistakes too, as post-game analysis of the preliminary rounds has revealed, but not the kind of mistake I wouldn't commit online as well. At least I managed to avoid doing something royally stupid that would cost me an entire game. So, a short answer to your question would be no. Even though there are undeniable differences between in-person Carcassonne and online Carcassonne, the visuals, the time control, the human aspect of it, fundamentally it is still the same tile placing game. You try find good moves and maximize your winning chances. If you get a city cap, it doesn't matter whether it's a piece of cardboard or a bunch of pixels. The 4 points taste all the same.
Everyone who is undefeated in the Swiss system in the World Cup never become world champion?
Okay, then next year, I'm gonna try losing one game on purpose and see if it helps me in the playoffs at all. Okay, in all seriousness, I'm not sure if there is a good explanation for it. You could maybe argue for something psychological, like maybe the winner of the preliminary stage gets complacent. I don't think it was the case with me though. As soon as the preliminary stage had concluded, a friend came over to congratulate me, only to immediately follow up with a reminder, "Remember, you have not won the championship yet." So, I made sure to treat the remainder of the day with the seriousness it deserves. The real explanation, I think, is boring and simple. After the preliminary stage is over, there are 8 contenders remaining, 1 winner of the preliminary stage, and 7 other people who are not winners of the preliminary stage. If we assume everybody has an equal chance of winning, roughly, it is a 1 in 8 chance that the winner of the preliminary stage takes down the title, and a 7 in 8 chance that somebody else does it. Even if we are to assume that the winner of the preliminary stage is the most skilled player, which is absolutely not always the case, maybe we can bump up their championship probability to 1 in 4 or 1 in 3. But it still makes it more likely that the title is won by somebody else. It's crazy to think about this. It doesn't matter how good you are, with a field of 40 plus experts and masters, even if you have a better chance at winning the title than anybody else in the room, the most likely outcome is still that it is going to be someone else.
About the guys of those photos we could share through the internet, players, family, friends, organizers, the publisher Hansing Luke, Carcassonne Central members, and somebody from Germany and from other points of around the world. Everybody in Herne. What do you think about the growing of the Carcassonne community?
That was truly heartwarming to witness. The interactions with other members of the international Carcassonne community over and away from the board was one of my favorite parts of the championship experience. It makes me optimistic. I am convinced that the unprecedented growth of enthusiasm the community has experienced over the last couple of years is just the beginning of something bigger.
In a lot of interviews I do with everyone in this beautiful community, I ask for tips to improve our level in Carcassonne, and many of them says, "To view the Alexey's channel. Did you realize the significance of your work as a Carcassonne teacher?"
Before the World Championship, I had not felt it to the full extent. It is only now starting to sink in. I get encouraging comments and messages increasingly often, and my channel has more than tripled in viewership since the time of our last interview. But it wasn't until Herne that I finally met many of my viewers in person, including those who I had no idea were watching my channel. So I have started treating my YouTube channel with increasing seriousness. I have ambitious long-term plans for it. At the very least, I intend to keep making videos while I still have something of value to share. And since I'm now getting messages like, "Can you make a videos about this? Can you make a video about that?" with increasing regularity, I have the work cut out for me for the foreseeable future.
Nobody from Turkey, no players, no teams to the WTCOC. You said to me that you have traveled and visited several cities in Europe, but you could go to Istanbul to make 2 things, one for you and one for the Carcassonne community. The second one to teach the game. The first, well, you will imagine what to do there.
Actually, I did spend some time in Istanbul 8 years ago. However, the purpose of my visit was not what you're thinking. There was no need back then. I didn't teach any Carcassonne either. I just happened to have a day in Istanbul during my layover to Bulgaria. But I understand what you're getting at. It's not just Turkey. There are many countries where the competitive Carcassonne scene is still young, and yet it feels that a portion of the population would be potentially interested in competitive Carcassonne in a way that would fit into their lives with some positive value. And it is true that such countries could use knowledge and resources from outside to help them off the ground. In the future, I'd love to see World Team Carcassonne Online Championship teams from Turkey, Korea, Australia, Canada, Finland, Sweden, Switzerland countries that have expert players, but not quite the numbers to make a team or develop a culture of competitive Carcassonne yet. However, I don't think I am the person to make that happen. Making videos is more time-consuming than people might imagine, and the most productive way to use the remaining time I have for Carcassonne after making videos would be to invest that time into learning how to make better videos more efficiently. Rather than getting there on the ground, I'm hoping to inspire the growth of competitive Carcassonne scenes in other countries through my content. My YouTube channel is already available in Turkey just as it is anywhere else. Maybe somebody gets inspiration and starts making Carcassonne content in Turkish, and who knows where it leads us next. I would like to see a scene with different Carcassonne content creators covering all kinds of topics in all kinds of different languages, similar to how they have it in chess. A second point to this is as follows. Even though content creation for me has become more important than actually playing, I still want to remain a functioning mind sports athlete on top of that, and to keep improving my game. Speaking in chess terms, my mission statement is not to be the Gotham Chess of Carcassonne, but rather the Hikaru Nakamura of Carcassonne. That is, to have a growing YouTube channel where I share everything I can share, yet at the same time, to stay competitive at the highest level. All that said, I'm absolutely open to occasional Carcassonne-related foreign travel if there's interest and resources to make that happen. In fact, we are planning a Carcassonne-related trip in 2024 to a country I have never been before, but I'd rather not reveal anything further until we have sorted out the practicalities and confirmed everything.
WTCOC 2023. You were one of the best teams, but at the beginning Latvia was a little close to get out the competition. What's the evaluation of this edition for you?
In the group stage, we found ourselves in the objectively toughest group, so mathematically almost every team in our group was one loss away from elimination at some point. So Team Latvia is not unique in that regard. However, there was a key moment in the 7th round of the group stage that is well worth sharing. We had all but guaranteed qualification into the playoffs with one round to spare. All we needed to do was not to lose to Poland 5-0, or to hope that Ukraine does not win against Spain with a score of 4-1 or better. So we didn't even need to win against Poland. We could afford a loss of 2-3, for example, and then the outcome of the Spain versus Ukraine match wouldn't even matter at all. The match, Latvia versus Poland, was set for Sunday, May 26th. That day also happened to be an important day in Latvian physical sports. Our national hockey team was playing against Team USA in the Ice Hockey World Championship bronze medal match. Ice hockey is a huge deal in Latvia, so you can imagine how elated we were when Latvia managed to win against USA 4-3 in overtime and claim the bronze medal for the first time in history. With all that emotion in the air, we still had a Carcassonne match to play against Poland a couple of hours later. One of my teammates quickly lost her duel because she was distracted by the hockey celebrations and just couldn't focus. Another teammate of mine was so distracted that he forgot about his duel altogether and lost by forfeit. And I was distracted by trying to find said teammate whilst I was playing myself, so I made some mistakes in my duel against the Polish player with a screen name Broslo. I missed a chance to apply the Ukrainian technique against 3 of his monasteries at the same time. This move would have been a sure win, but I only realized my miss seconds after I pressed the confirm button. As a result, Team Latvia ended up losing that match 0-5, the one outcome that we needed to avoid. Luckily for us, Team Spain won convincingly against Team Ukraine later in the evening, and as a result, Latvia made it narrowly to the playoffs. A month later, we found ourselves in the shoes, or should I say in the skates, of the Latvian hockey team. after winning a nail-biter against thitherto undefeated Romania in the quarterfinals, and succumbing to the eventual world champions Team China in the semifinals, we were playing a bronze medal match at the World Championship. And just like the hockey team, we emerged victorious by the narrowest of margins when Norbert Strautensch took the deciding game against Team Spain's Fernando de los Rios to put us ahead 3-2. Latvia had a generally good year in physical sports, so the coincidence of our mind sports following suit made the whole experience feel even more special. This was by far my favorite of the 3 World Team Carcassonne Online Championship installments in which I had participated. And not just because of the result. I had the best teammates I could have ever wished for. They were enthusiastic, eager to participate in our weekly Carcassonne practice meetings, and created a positive atmosphere of camaraderie. And on my part, I enjoyed doing the captain's job quite a bit. You see, in 2022 and the first half of 2023, I was experiencing a long period of underperformance in Carcassonne tournaments, both in person and online. So it was nice to be able to make up as captain for what I didn't manage to contribute to my team as a player. It wasn't just organizing the matches and the selection process and the training process, but there were a lot of small decisions to be made behind the scenes during the championship itself. I put a lot of thought into selecting the right players for lineups in a way that both maximizes our winning chances and at the same time lets newer players get as much valuable championship experience as possible.
Who selected you as the representative of Latvia? You are the captain, but did all the team members decide to choose you as the Latvian contestant to Herne?
It was an interesting situation. The organizers of the World Team Carcassonne Online Championship did not mandate a specific process, except for the fact that it needed to be fair and democratic. My initial suggestion was to send the MVP of Team Latvia at the World Team Carcassonne Online Championship, but it was rejected by my teammates without even asking who the MVP actually was. My teammates kindly insisted on me going, so our de facto selection process was just a vote. The de jure selection criterion was Board Game Arena ELO as of June 29. I greatly appreciate the trust bestowed upon me by my teammates, and I'm happy that my performance in Herne seems to have justified their choice.
Alexey, tell the audience something you would like and I haven't asked you before.
I'll just use this platform as an opportunity to thank everybody who has been watching my videos and has been supporting me at the World Championship. My phone was bursting with notifications on the day. It means a lot to me and actually helped me in games. It felt like having an 8th meeple. In particular, I received a lot of support from Carcassonne Brazil in the form of verbal encouragement on the day, training and advice from Melvin Quaresma and Pablo Ribeiro prior to the championship, and of course the custom Latvian flag-colored meeples gifted to me by Eric Mateos.
It was a great pleasure having you one more time on Meeple Podcast. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, Joaquin. Thank you for having me.
Goodbye, Alexey, and to the audience, see you in the next episode. Bye bye.